This is Paul Shortino here. I hear you got yourself a YouTube show called Grab a Stack of Rock. Oh yeah, oh no, I feel I'm dreaming again. Oh no, I'm dreaming. Oh no, I feel I'm dreaming again. Oh no, I'm dreaming. Oh yeah, I'm dreaming of watching you. That's right, Mike. And your new show on YouTube called Grab a Stack of Rock.
Hello. Good evening
hello.
or good morning to Harrison.
Yes, it is a rainy Australian morning here tonight.
It is July the 12th in Australia. And
yes, it is.
And I would just like to wish my grandmother a 101th birthday. Is that how you would say it? July the 12th is her
101st, I think you'd say.
101st is her birthday. July 12th, which is in Australia, it's already her birthday. So happy 101 to my grandmother, who may or may not have bought me Iron Maiden music over the years. But that's a heck of a milestone, and I just wanted to mark it tonight on Grab a Stack of Rock using the Australian date as the excuse. Mm-hmm. But tonight we're not here to talk about my grandmother. No, we are here to talk about this. Got to do the side view, according to Tim Durling.
I was going to bring this up later when we did the cover art, but this spine art sucks. It's the only Iron Maiden DVD that doesn't have the band logo. It throws the whole thing out on the shelf.
Now, I don't have my VHS copy anymore, but it did not look like this. Maybe someone in the audience has a VHS that they can recall what it looks like. But tonight we're talking about Raising Hell. What is Raising Hell? Well, Bruce Dickinson decided to resign from Iron Maiden to focus on Balls to Picasso in his solo career. And for better or for worse, they decided to continue on touring, see out those dates, and they decided to end what looked like was their end of Bruce's tenure. And they decided to do it in a special way by throwing a special event. So this is what happened. Here are the details. On the 29th of August in 1993, Iron Maiden played their final show with Bruce Dickinson at the Pinewood Studios in London, England. It was broadcast live on pay-per-view television in the United Kingdom and on MTV in North America. The video, the VHS that I was speaking of, was released on the 5th of September the following year, 1994. So over a year later. It was originally distributed on VHS and Laserdisc by BMG Special Products in the US and EMI in the rest of the world. I cannot remember what I had, but I'm thinking I had the US VHS, the BMG. Might be wrong on that, but like I said, I don't have it anymore. It is a 1 hour, 53-minute show approximately, directed by Declan Lowney and produced by Michael Pillett. And I would assume that those two gentlemen were also responsible for the audio, which is what I listened to. Now, this show was unique for Iron Maiden. They decided to do something special for the TV audiences, and they employed a horror magician named Simon Drake, who we saw.
Well, I'm not sure how much input they had on that decision.
Okay.
It might have been a management thing.
Let's say Rod Smallwood had a lot to do with this. But yes, fair statement, Harrison. But who is Simon Drake? Well, actually, Simon Drake was an ex-Decca employee who befriended Arthur Brown. And I believe Bruce Dickinson is quite a fan of Arthur Brown. So perhaps Bruce might have been connected to this as well. Arthur Brown was Simon Drake's mentor. Surprisingly, given what we're about to see tonight, He toured with Kate Bush in 1979 as several characters in her stage show. He has even performed for Queen Elizabeth II. So what we are about to see tonight may not have anyway. Henry has a good question. No, it was not played on TV in Canada. It was not available for pay-per-view in Canada. Unless you had MTV via satellite, which a few people did. Now, speaking of Henry Wright, Henry has contributed this fun fact. Northern Ireland actress Juliet Cowan is one of the main actresses in the Magic Act scenes, and she played Amy Winehouse's mum in the movie Back to Black from 2024. So I will point out when we see Juliet tonight, because she is in one of the clips, and she's in several of the segments. All right, so Harrison, as you know, we'd like to go track by track. Are you ready to do so?
Yes.
Oh, Ryan, my friend Ryan, thank you so much for what you did last week. He's never seen this live concert before, so he's excited to hear about it. And yeah, you will have to go find a copy. As we pointed out, it is available on DVD. But maybe you want to check out that VHS if you have a way to play VHS. All right, let's do this. So it starts with a Simon Drake. Well, it starts actually with a long-haired guy holding a torch, walking down a hallway while arms are breaking through the walls to grab him. There's no magic here.
It's possibly Eddie. We don't get a look at his face.
Right. This is not actually, it feels very disconnected from the whole show that we're about to see. The pre-recorded Maiden music in this segment is Genghis Khan.
Yes, an inspired choice, might I say.
Yes, considering the subject matter. But anyway, a woman that is blended into a painting of a skull feeds Eddie a tray of plastic eyeballs. Then there's lots of screaming and ladies in cages. Very Iron Maiden, I guess. But then we have Simon Drake, and he introduces the show. And Harrison and I, we both get a chuckle out of this quote. But I'll do my best Simon Drake impression for you. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, how do they know? They've never been here. Then he throws a grenade, which is a running thing that he does in the show. He just makes things explode. And then he says, welcome, here's Iron Maiden. And then be quick and be dead. Be quick or be dead. Interestingly enough, though, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's a chorus on Bruce Dickinson's Accident of Birth album.
Yes. Well, it's just a larger quote in general that gets referenced at times. Yeah. So interesting thing about the DVD actually restored some of the songs that weren't on the pay-per-view because it was a slightly cut down experience. But there are some things that were exclusive to the pay-per-view, as we'll get into a bit later.
I believe I watched both in preparation for this, but we'll find out as we go through our notes here. Let's start. So we have the amazing, just roaring start to Be Quick or Be Dead, but then Bruce kind of comes in with sort of like a weaker scream than the ones that we heard on last week's show when we did Donington and a real live one. This scream is kind of truncated and less steady, I would say. Interestingly enough as well, he doesn't do that thing that I've been talking about for like the last 3 episodes in a row. Instead, he goes, hey, yuck, pow. I don't know. I'm just easily amused. Steve Harris really seems to be into it at this point. Yannick is doing his thing, the spinning and turning. I find personally in the versions that I watched, I didn't find the vocals as audible in the mix as I would have liked. But one thing that struck me from this track,
I know that the default setting for the DVD is 5.1. And so, yeah, I listened to a bit of Be Quick or Be Dead, and I'm like, hang on, this doesn't sound right, and changed it to stereo, and I could hear the vocals a lot better.
That was my mistake. Finally, the last thing I wanted to say is, and this is a problem that recurs through the show, and you get the feeling that this camera crew, they're not Maiden's camera crew. This is a TV camera crew, and they don't get it. The camera is on Yannick for the first part of Davy's guitar solo. And this is an ongoing thing where cameras just kind of like cut away in bad places, and you just get the feeling that this wasn't a camera crew that was really familiar with Iron Maiden. You know, why would you have the camera on Yannick for the first part of Davy's solo?
That being said, this is still a far better shot affair than Donington. None of that 90s slow-mo, none of that 90s black and white. The focus is on the band, even if there are these occasional missteps with guitar solos, but even the best cameramen sometimes mess that up. I think it's a far more enjoyable watch than Donington. The production is similar to Donington, which is to say that it's thin, but not as thin as the Live One Dead One combo. Bruce is singing similarly to Donington regarding his thin voice, or thinner voice rather, but he's got his range back and he's sounding pretty good. Yeah, a lot, as I said, even the best directors sometimes mess that up. The stage side, this is a cool show because it's a much smaller set at Pinewood. It really harkens back to the Live at the Rainbow VHS, small set, well lit. And it's cool because it's decorated entirely in Iron Maiden. Even like the back and the side walls have Maiden art prints wrapping around. And then when you're looking at the stage, off to the right, well, it would be on this side of the screen for you. So actually on the left side of your screen, but on the right side of the stage, there's the Power Slave Pharaoh head mounted there from the World Slavery Tour that would usually sit up the back behind Nico and then split for the Eddie to come out during that show, which was really cool to see that thing. Or either they recreated it or they brought it back out of storage, one of the two, but it looks really close.
I very much enjoyed the backdrops of the different Maiden artwork, but I had just this weird feeling while watching it that it didn't feel like a proper concert, you know? It's inside a studio. And it just gives you a weird vibe. Like, I didn't necessarily get the same vibe that you get, like, Live at the Rainbow. It's just different, and there, you can see all kinds of like camera crew and stuff. It's different. That's all I'll say. It's different. It feels like a different kind of concert. Is that all you want to say about Be Quick or Be Dead?
Yes, indeed.
The Trooper. All I wrote here is that Bruce is singing great, but, and this is a running thing through the concert again, I think Bruce looks somber while Dave and Yannick, they're pulling faces. They're doing their usual thing. They're goofing off. And of course, Steve is Steve, right? But I get a feeling of Bruce looking somber, and maybe that's just me reading into it.
Yeah, he actually does address on stage for basically, I think, the first time this tour that he is actually leaving the band.
Correct. I'll get there when we get to that track.
The Trooper is really solid vocally, and I feel like Bruce gets better as he goes on through the verses. Yannick's solo here is very close to what Adrian's was on record too. Not Yannick. Did I say Yannick solo? Yeah, Yannick is the one who's close to Adrian. Davies, his usual sort of semi-improvisationary self.
You know, another thing I noticed, and I'm bringing this up prematurely than I noted it, but I noticed also that Bruce doesn't interact with the other band members very much on this concert. You see the three guys with their guitars, Stevie, Yannick, and Dave, and a lot of the time they're playing with one another, but Bruce tends to stand back, running back and forth, but he does seem separate from the band. And again, maybe I'm reading into it. But the next track up is
well, we go to Drake.
It's a Drake break. What I've called Drake breaks in my notes here. So this is a Drake break that I call the Eye of the Storm, and this is the first one where we see Juliet Cowan. Instead of describing this to you, I will play this Drake break for you. Now, StreamYard, between last week's show and this week's show, StreamYard has completely changed their interface. So if any mistakes are made, it is not my fault. It is StreamYard's fault. The Eye of the Storm. Okay, so this is a slightly edited clip. Take a look. This is Simon Drake and Juliet Cowan.
When Pandora opened her box, all the evil escaped into the world, and only hope remained to keep her company. But hope got so dull after a while, she exchanged it for this. For years I've hungered for it, and now it is mine. The Eye of the Storm. source of all passion, pain, and desire. This is the evil that men do.
Weird to have somebody other than Bruce introducing the song. Now, Harrison, you had some information about the background music we heard?
Firstly, this is one of the least interesting tricks of the show. Anytime there's a chair involved, it's pretty easy to hide things. Yeah.
Tricks.
It's pretty easy to hide things when there's a chair involved. But yes, as I was doing my final research for this show last night, I stumbled across some very helpful chap on Reddit who had identified most, I was about to say most, if not all. I know most, but not all is more. Might cut that down for time because I waste time with this first person coming out as well. But yeah, so the background music in this is a song called "Get Off" by a band by the name of Cacophony. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but there is a man by the name of Marty Friedman in the band Cacophony.
And Jason Becker, right? That was their
Jason Becker's the other one,
I had no idea all these years. I've always been interested in hearing Cacophony. This is going back to when I first heard of them in the guitar magazines, and Jason Becker was not in David Lee Roth's band yet.
Yeah, this is more than half a decade before Marty Friedman would be in Megadeth too, if I have my dates correctly.
Yeah,
So,
easy.
This isn't the last time Marty Friedman appears in the background music as well.
Okay. So that was obviously an intro to The Evil That Men Do, which, as I said, I find weird. It's Yannick on the opening guitar melody. And Bruce is singing very strongly on this one. And I would like you to remember what I just said. Bruce is singing very strongly on this one, The Evil That Men Do. And the reason I want you to remember this is it's foreshadowing. Keep in mind, we have episodes coming with Blaze Bayley on lead vocals, and maybe other people have different opinions than I do. So remember what I said. Bruce is singing strongly on The Evil That Men Do. And just to elaborate on what Henry and Harrison said here. Yes, I cut out the first woman who just kind of like went up on like a trapeze, whatever you call it, like she went up on a rope and went into the scaffolding, and then the second woman comes out, and I just had to pick one. So luckily I picked the one that Henry informed me about today. So I was able to tie that together.
Yeah. All right, The Evil That Men Do. This is a hell of a performance of the song. There's these prominent keyboards on the pre-chorus. I didn't do the A/B testing to see how high they are in the mix versus other versions, but they felt pretty high up in the mix. Yannick's go of Adrian's solo is like note perfect. There's no deviations. It's a little weird he chose to basically play this one completely straight. But there's also this really odd sounding line where Bruce goes, "Sing it for me everywhere." Because he's not talking to London or to Pinewood, he's talking to everyone out there in TV land. So he's usually like, "Scream for me everywhere," and it sounds really goofy at times.
Yeah, it is kind of strange, isn't it? This is followed by another Seven Son track, The Clairvoyant. And this is one of the times that you see Yannick and Bruce interacting. They kind of do this face-off with cool rock moves. That part is cool. But Bruce, I noticed, sings the verse melody slightly differently. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, I do not like this version of the Clairvoyant. It's definitely my least version. Bruce is doing all these like mini pauses halfway through and midway through these lines. It completely disrupts the melody. It's the sort of thing that, you know, people not from State Farm would probably hate if I had to go out on a limb. Um, in other stage news, there is a Walk on Eddie, the same real live one, Walk on Eddie, that's sort of based on the Number of the Beast with the long hair, the leather jacket, and the white shirt. And I must say, it is cool that the basically like the stage set eddies were still incorporated into this, not dropped because of Drake's parts. I mean, they come on during the song sort of thing, but you know, I'm glad that they chose to retain it, like the Iron Maiden show.
Doesn't he also say "Scream for Me, Pinewood"?
No, it's "Scream for Me, Everyone."
Yeah,
at least on the DVD that I watched, because I didn't watch any of the pay-per-view. At least on the DVD, there are no instances of Pinewood. It's always everywhere.
Yeah, I would agree with Harrison. I think he was consistent, just like he is on the Maiden albums. You know, "Scream for Me, Long Beach." It's consistent. I'm pretty sure.
Except, well, he said "Scream for Me, Long Beach," and then later on he says "Speak to Me, Hammersmith." But
that's a different gig. Different gig.
Yeah, we all know why.
Right. Okay, so Clairvoyant. Then we go into "Hallowed Be Thy Name." I noticed, I just noticed these things, but I noticed Davey holds the pick in his mouth as he finger picks that. Dun, 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 dun. Bruce spends a lot of his time on the platforms on the side of the venue. He does a lot of the "Scream for Me everywhere" because, of course, it's Hallowed. So there's a lot of that. And Yannick, I like the way he does harmonics. He does these cool finger gestures with kind of make it look like magic. Yannick Gers does more magic in this show than Simon Drake does. But I know Yannick. I'm gonna pontificate for a moment. Yannick gets a lot of shit in the comment section on my YouTube channel. I don't know why. I see a lot of people say Yannick's goofy. I see a lot of people say Yannick ruined the band. I see a lot of people say they haven't been as good ever since Yannick joined. And, Adrian Smith was a very special talent. He brought something so unique to the band. And we've discussed this in other episodes. His writing, his composition of guitar, his tone, everything about Adrian was unique and special. But that doesn't mean Yannick isn't. Yannick is very different. He's very improvisational. He's very fast and choppy. That was what Bruce Dickinson said, fast and choppy. And I like Yannick, okay? I like Yannick, and he's very showy. And that's another thing people kind of hate. Like, he spends more time, like, doing this with his guitar than playing it, right? Okay, sure, fine. Do people get on Hendrix's case for that? No, they don't. I think Yannick is awesome. I love Yannick Gers. I was so happy when further down the line in the series, when they do reunite with Adrian, spoiler alert, that they kept Yannick. I really like him. And just these little things like him doing this with his fingers, a little bit of showmanship. Love it. Bravo, Yannick Gers.
Yannick is also responsible for bringing Dave Murray out of his shell a bit on stage, which is the reason why some of these Iron Maiden shows are enjoyable to watch, because you have two guitarists absolutely loving it and playing.
Correct.
Yeah, visually.
And if you want to see a direct quote from Nico McBrain saying that exact thing, we covered that in our Made in England episode. So check out that Made in England episode if you haven't seen it yet. Let's just quickly get to the comments. Owen, of course, thank you. Yes, I understood what you meant there. And I flat out don't like his style. Okay. Owen, we're just going to have to agree to disagree tonight. Anyway, on to the next Drake break.
Well, Hallowed, rather. My thoughts on Hallowed. It's an early placement. It's well done vocally. The part of the stage set up at the top left of your screen that Bruce basically spends most of the time around, that's like a new setup specifically for Hallowed. That's why he's there. And I noticed that during like the finale where they, do their drawn out instrumental bang, bang, bang and all that, Nico actually climbs up onto his drums, or one of his drums, to look out into the stage. Onto the stage, rather.
That's cool. And yes, I noticed the gallows. I forgot to note that. Okay.
Not the last time that Gallows features on this DVD.
Well, that is definitely true.
And it doesn't have to do with Simon Drake. He doesn't hang anyone.
Let's move on to the Drake break. He does this kind of neat thing where he throws an apple, catches the apple on the tip of his knife. But then for absolutely no reason at all, he takes the knife and drives it through his arm. And then you can see a couple in the audience, and they're like, ew. And sometimes I wonder, like, who was in this audience? Like, and we'll get into this a little bit further on down when we get to Heaven Can Wait, but I'm wondering who was in this audience. Then Simon Drake, after he like removes the knife from his arm and wipes the blood off, he says, "So what did you expect? Card tricks?" And this is like one of the very few magic tricks in the whole show. And then he attempts to light his cigar, but his lighter doesn't work, and the audience guy's lighter doesn't work. So this infuriates Simon Drake. So Simon says to he's got henchmen on his stage. He's got this big dude with like a monster mask, and then he's got this woman with pasties. And so Drake says, "Get him!" And he does this several times during the show. "Get him!" And then they get the guy out of the audience. They throw him on a platform in a box. They light the box on fire. The box collapses, and there's only bones left. And then Simon Drake lights his cigar on the flames, and he says, "Hey, smoking kills." Thankfully, redeeming this, we go into Wrathchild.
Well, I'm just going to talk a bit about Drake's second part.
Oh,
there's
sure.
Music in there. So
okay, yes.
In my notes, I have the line, "Stabs himself in the arm," brackets, "makes a big deal of it." And so the music at the first part of the music is Jewel by Marty Friedman. And the second part is where it sort of ramps up, gets more electric, is Hold Your Fire by, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Bill Liesengang.
Works for me. Wrathchild. Sweaty Bruce is now at the very front of the stage extension. Actually, you know what? I want to address something here. When I first saw this video, I had no idea that Bruce had grown out his bangs. So he's constantly got all this hair in his face, which I'd never seen before. And he only looked like that for a brief while. It was that and the Balls to Picasso era, because he cut his hair for Skunkworks. So really, it's like a 2 or 3 year period where Bruce had this long hair in his face. And it looks weird. And when he starts sweating, it's in his face. I just note the weirdest things, don't I? Harrison's the one with the substance. One thing I really like.
I've got a whole list of little things that I saw in the audience or on stage during this thing as well. So
okay, bring it on, Harrison.
I don't have anything for Wrathchild, but I'm just saying all the Drake segments, as far as I can tell, all the audio is pre-recorded and it's playback. Even Drake's speech, like as far as I can tell, there's no microphone. And sort of like you can sort of tell anytime there's a scream or he's in pain, there's always like this monstrous, exaggerated sound that he couldn't possibly, it's very bass boosted. He couldn't possibly produce with his mouth.
Okay,
so
no.
As far as I can tell, it's all playback.
I don't think it's all playback. I think his voice when he's speaking, I think that's him live because the lip sync is so perfect. It doesn't look like that to me, Harrison. It does not look that way to me at all. It looks like he has probably a mic under his shirt. I don't think anything else is mic'd from the. I don't think when the guy yells from the audience, "Hey, play more music!" I think that's a pre-recorded tape. I think those screams that we heard during the Pandora's Box segment with after he eats the thing, I think that's all pre-recorded. But
possibly, I'd have to
think
pay
his
more
speaking is
attention
live.
to the lip syncing and sort of really scrutinize it. But it just sort of sounded to me and looked to me like it was pre-recorded, but I could be wrong. At least a lot of it is pre-recorded playback.
Definitely. But I think his vocal mic is live. That's my theory. I want to know what you think in the comments.
Yeah. But this Wrathchild, this is a well-done version. Powerful screech. Bruce's voice is in good shape for the end of the tour. However, it's worth noting it was a very short tour, and two, there was a month between the end of the real live tour and this gig.
Right. Which I think that also added to the awkwardness. But there would have been a lot of rehearsals to do this. Anyway, we speculate a lot in this episode, and I don't want to get too much into speculation because a lot of that's just we don't know. My last notes about Wrathchild were that I really like that you can hear Steve on the backing vocals and that Davey plays that guitar solo with his teeth. There's a lot of Hendrix in those two guitar players when you think about it, especially visually. On to the controversial choice, Transylvania, an instrumental. So we have the elephant in the room. Why pick an instrumental for Bruce's final show? Yes, Maiden did want to put more obscure gems into the set for the real live tour, but this is Bruce's final show. Like, maybe he needed a mid-show break.
I speculated that maybe the guys just wanted to have some fun on stage without Bruce and forget about the fact that he's leaving. That I speculated that last week. They look like they're having fun up there. They look like they're having a blast playing just them. I mean, I personally always love to hear Transylvania. I'll never say no to the Maiden instrumentals performed live. I love them.
I think Nico especially is having fun. You watch him play this song, and it's really wild. There's two cameras that you're capturing Nico, so you get him from two different angles. So what I really liked about this track is there's no jokes, there's no magic. It's just a band playing, and it's brilliant. So great version of Transylvania. I was absolutely thrilled to see this on the set, regardless of the elephant in the room. Maybe it's a bit of 50-50, Harrison. Maybe they wanted a break from Bruce, and maybe he wanted to rest his voice. Anyway, moving on from here to eternity. Now, this one is the first song where we actually have Drake interacting with the band. So you can't separate the side. This drives me mental because you can't separate Simon Drake from Iron Maiden at this point. Bruce Dickinson introduces this song by saying, "Let me see your hands. Think about your hands, how important they are." Which is, I wish I made a sign, Harrison. In hindsight, I wish I made a sign that said foreshadowing. because this is another instance of foreshadowing. So we go into From Here to Eternity. And partway through the song, Davey is kidnapped by Simon Drake and has his hands removed, which Simon then uses. He holds them in his hands and he uses them to play the guitar solo. And Bruce makes hand jokes throughout the song. So what's interesting about this track is it sounds to me like after Davey is kidnapped by Drake, it sounds like it's just Yannick. So one guitar for much of the track. And then when Davey comes back in with his solo, he's obviously backstage playing it.
Yeah, because there's specifically like a pillar that separates the two parts of the stage. So
correct.
Davey is briefly unseen. Davey and the henchmen are briefly unseen as they're passing across.
I think that'll be when we show our final clip, that'll be very clear how there were two stages. There's this stage to the left with Drake and his magic stuff, and then there's this stage to the right with Iron Maiden, and in the middle is a divider. But the divider gets broken a few times during the show, and this is one instance. And we assume Simon Drake's motives here was just that he wanted to play guitar, and he can't play guitar, so he needed a good pair of hands.
Yeah, he's shown like practicing on some other guitar before he sends the henchman. I think this is a total hoot. I never get tired of watching Drake play Davey's solo with the disembodied hands. It's my favorite part of the Drake stuff to do with the show. And I think this is like the perfect blend of the music. I think this is like the high point for Drake's stuff because this is a perfect blend of the music and the magic in a way that doesn't stop the music to go over to Drake's stage. The music, you still get to see the music, but it's humorously accentuated with Drake holding Davey's disembodied hands to play the guitar. I think if more of the stuff was like this, where it was Drake and the band interacting, it would be a lot less jarring. But From Here to Eternity itself, and if there was any doubt about Drake's inclusion, Steve actually turns his head, looks over at Drake playing the guitar with Davey's hands, and then when he looks back, he's just grinning, Steve. So and it's not like it's right up in his face and he's grinning for the camera. That's just his genuine reaction. But
there's a lot of genuine Steve on, like, regardless of what was going on, Steve looks really just pumped to be doing this.
Yeah, this is also one of the few songs that Yannick Gert is on backing vocals, though with Steve as well, it's a bit harder to hear him individually. We'll get to a song later where he gets a bit of a showcase.
That's right.
Of his vocals. And also, another thing I noticed, right, so Steve is wearing a Dirty Deeds t-shirt. Now, Dirty Deeds were a heavy metal band that featured one Tony Newton. Now, Tony Newton is a friend of Steve's, and this isn't the last time that Tony Newton will factor into the Iron Maiden story.
He's factored in before, hasn't he? We've talked about Tony.
Well, we talked about him in the Virtual 11 episode, which hasn't aired yet.
That's okay, right. See,
but even then, in Virtual 11, it's not the last time he'll factor into the Iron Maiden story.
See, when we record these episodes out of order, it does mix me up, but it does also enable me to do foreshadowing, which we'll have some more of. Anyway, From Here to Eternity, I'm completely opposite to Harrison on this. I really am. I don't like it. I don't like that divider being broken between I want my Maiden pure, but anyway, we move on to Fear of the Dark, which was still kind of a new song and not yet the set closer that we know it to be. Davey is back. He's got his hands back. Bruce says hi to zillions and zillions of people, and he invites everyone to a serious drink up.
Or does he? The thing I alluded to, it's things exclusive to the pay-per-view. The intro is not on the DVD. Presumably it was cut because whoever's watching it on the DVD might not know it was originally a pay-per-view broadcast, and it would sound really weird to have him talking to everyone out there on the TV screen, inviting them to a piss up when you're watching this. This was released in 2000, so you're watching this being like, well, I guess I'm late for that piss up.
Interesting. So I'm glad I watched the versions.
Yeah, I'm glad you watched the pay-per-view as well, because it gives the contrast.
Yeah, I just picked one on YouTube to watch, and then I messaged Harrison. I'm like, it's missing the clairvoyant, and then so I watched both, and so that's.
See, I'm not 100% sure which songs were missing. All the songs that were missing from the pay-per-view that were restored for the DVD, but the clairvoyant was one of them. I know.
I didn't make notes of that, but I'll remember some of them. Okay, so Fear of the Dark, blah blah blah. There's a terrible intro here that I didn't like about watching this on your small screens, and then Bruce says, "You're not afraid of the dark, are you? You will be." And it's just like to me it misses the mark. It's like he's trying to do that Yoda thing, and it missed the mark for me. But good track, good version of the track. You can hear those keyboards at the end very nicely. I wasn't yet sick of Fear of the Dark when this came out. So
Bruce is singing really expressively here. He's got a little bit of grit to his voice, not the sort of exaggerated No Prayer for the Dying rasp, but a more like that sort of Rock in Rio, sort of like slightly weathered rasp. He sings really expressively. It's a great version of Fear of the Dark. And one of the things you can notice, or you can notice it throughout the show, but I noticed it during Fear of the Dark, is that Davey has some very light mustache and stubble, which he doesn't usually have.
No, I didn't notice that. Look at this.
It's possible he didn't. He stopped shaving after the tour ended, and it's like, we have to do another gig a month later. Yeah, I'm not going to bother.
The minutia, folks. That's why you're here. After Fear of the Dark, we get another Drake break, and
more music.
Well, hey, there's a bit before that that features Juliet Cowan again. She plays Tracy, who broke his little heart by cheating on him with the drummer. I don't know if specifically...
of all the people, why did you have to go out with the drummer? I love
and that. And he doesn't specifically say that it's Nico, but I like to pretend that it's Nico. Anyway, so he rips her heart out, Temple of Doom style, and then she has her one and only not line in the show, which is, "Love, who needs it?" And she rolls her eyes. At this point, like I was saying earlier, there's a guy in the audience who yells out, "Hey! More music!"
I think this is a really great meta joke about how people felt about Simon Drake's inclusion in the DVD. That "Hey, more music" would be awfully prophetic.
This is so bad. This is so bad, folks. Like, this is the worst of all the tricks. Chris Sarr, we are live tonight, my friend, so it's nice to see you. The legendary Chris Sarr. And I happen to have a clip of this Drake break. So let's get the clips going here. Is there anything else I want to say here before we run this Drake break?
I'm just going to say that regarding music, the part that plays when the heart is ripped out, the person on Reddit wasn't able to identify what that was. But the second part that plays when the dude's limbs start, going crazy.
Spoiler!
Sorry. That is a cover of Saber Dance, once again by Bill Leeson-Gang.
Okay, cool. So, without further ado, I present to you what could be my least favorite of all the Simon Drake segments on Raising Hell. I really want your feedback on this one, folks. This is what Simon Drake does when a heckler says, "Hey, more music."
Hey! More music! Get him!
man, you can tell that guy was a plant because he had brand new running shoes on him, not a scuff. And I'm not even convinced that his long hair was real, but Chris Sarr is going to have nightmares now.
The hold your fire part was that very last bit after it gets plugged in. We weren't able to identify what the music that plays at the first part, the most part of that is.
But you can clearly hear there's a change in the music there. Yeah, this is really, I think it, I don't have words is what I have. Okay. So moving on. After this Drake break, we do the number of the beast. The camera is focused on the artwork for the real dead one, Eddie, for the intro of the song, the Woe to You.
Woe to You. Yes.
This is a solid version. I'm finding that for some of these classic tracks, we're getting solid versions on this Raising Hell. Like, just for context, when I first got this video, I recorded all of the songs onto I think it was 100-minute cassette tape, maybe 110-minute, can't remember, but an expensive one. And that's what I listened to. I listened to the audio of Raising Hell. I didn't watch the video very often. And, that's the way I prefer it. And I remember when I did that, I really enjoyed listening to Raising Hell. I played it frequently.
Yeah, I agree. There are some really, really good versions on here. If I know Maiden have sort of buried it recently. Its only DVD issuing was way back in 2000. But yeah, I think this just edges out Donington for the best opening number of the Beast scream of the 1990s, at least of the officially released versions. There's this moment where some dude runs on stage and Bruce fireman carries him to the side of the stage and deposits him there.
Oh, okay, interesting. I was just thinking if I can find my cassette of Raising Hell that I made back in the day, if I still have it, I'll try to find it during the next Drake break that where I run a clip. Okay, so number of the piece, we're going to Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. I love seeing Steve playing the open bass strings, no hand on the neck. Bruce takes the leather jacket off. It looks like he's sweating like a pig. And Yannick's solo is really fun to watch.
The real magic in this show is how Bruce's jacket keeps coming on and off. Because I'll get to some later tracks where it's on and then off and then on.
Yeah, clearly there was some cutting and pasting here.
Yeah, there was actually, according to the Wikipedia list for the real live tour, there was one show at Pinewood the day before this one. It's possible it was a dry run rehearsal or a show for friends of the band sort of thing. I don't know. They might have filmed that as well for additional footage. It's possible.
It would make sense to do that because if you're doing a dry run, you want to do a dry run on the cameras too.
I don't know how that would. Actually, the pay-per-view was a 15-minute delay, wasn't it? So they could have cut bits from the previous performance in there.
Yeah, there's always a delay, or at least there was back in those days.
Yeah. During Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, there's something I noticed. There's a blink and you'll miss it cameo during the intro where it's panning across the audience. There's a sooty puppet on an audience member's hand.
Yep.
Now, Sooty is this British teddy bear, and traditionally Nico McBrain has a sooty puppet on his drum stool. Oh, no, his drum stool on his drum set.
Yeah, now, usually on top of the bass drum or the.
Yeah. I did not see a sooty puppet on Nico's drums during this show. However, I didn't notice Sooty in the audience until this song, "Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter."
That's right.
I can't say with certainty whether Bruce did what he did in Maiden England and took Sooty and booted him into the audience with his foot. I don't think it was. I think somebody brought a Sooty puppet, but
I think it was planted there for that shot. I think it was done.
It's not the last time. Well, the thing is, it's blink and you'll miss it cameo. It's just at the very end of that shot. You see it for half a second. You'd have to know what it is to know what it was, basically. But yeah,
we
it's in the audience.
We did.
Not the last time that we'll see Sooty make some sort of appearance during this show.
Excellent. Last note. Yannick's solo is fun to watch. But there is another Simon Drake interaction here where he comes out with a hand-cranked circular saw. We saw that during the show intro. He's cranking this thing, and he cuts some of the posts on the side of the stage where the gallows was, and then he cuts a woman in half.
Actually, that's during Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, I think. Actually.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's a Drake break after Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter as well.
Right, and this Drake break wasn't included in the... what I think I watched the first time, which was the one with the missing songs, which I guess that was the pay-per-view. But there's a woman who's cleaning out her ear with a Q-tip. And for some reason, Drake is really offended by this and decides to strap her to a rack. And then he grabs a saw drill thing. Sorry, that was the thing that we saw in the intro.
Yeah.
Pardon me. This is the thing we saw in the intro with the saw drill thing. And then he, cleans out her ears, puts it right through her head. That'll teach.
Her head is in a box, by the way. You can't actually see her head. So whatever, her head is in a box.
Right. You know how these magic tricks go. I'm sure you can picture it. But that'll teach her to go sticking things in her ears. And then some bloody arms emerge from the head, which we also saw in the show intro. And then there's some wild applause. Then there's
this is a particularly long segment.
Oh, it is. It's agonizingly long.
This is like the part where the most unknown music is. There's like 4 different pieces of music, and we've only been able to identify one. So the biggest irony is that the very first piece of music that plays sounds like the part of it is like a dead ringer for the riff to Running Wild by Judas Priest / The Wicker Man by Iron Maiden.
Right.
And the greatest irony is that even though this is like 2 songs that we already know, we can't identify where the hell this Wicker Man riff came from, who's playing this version. It's only a part of the song is this Wicker Man riff, but it's like a dead ringer for the Wicker
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. The post-boring song, and I don't mean boring as in I'm falling asleep, although you might be. They're boring through her head. The post-boring song is Johann Brahms and it's Lullaby. I think it's a pretty well-known track. I can't tell you what it sounds like off the top of my head, but you'd know it if you heard it. Then there's some weird, like very circus music that happens after that, where they're doing this weird eulogy silent eulogy for the woman that died. I don't know what it is. It's not the quintessential entry of the gladiators, but it is very much circus music, but we don't know exactly what it is. And then the piece after that is unknown as well. I speculated could be Marty. Sounds sort of similar to his previous.
It has sort of
pieces.
like a Joe Satriani kind of groove to it, this next part. But I want to speculate as well that they had major prompters up there saying wild applause, because the wild applause after that little circus line thing is unnatural. You wouldn't,
or it's possible they actually wait. No, I was going to say they filmed applause of the band applause, and then they spliced that in.
No,
there.
it's too polite. It's too polite.
Yeah.
It's this kind of
and you can tell by the way they're facing on the stage, because everyone rotates 90 degrees to look at Drake's stage.
But it's not over yet, folks. It's not over yet. The ladies now start walking around and picking someone from the crowd, which are all obviously plants. There's this guy in the front row who's like wearing a sweater. So he's not the average Iron Maiden fan. Drake is offended by whatever, gets a saw, cuts off his head, plays soccer with the head. Then he blows up a garbage can and draws clown makeup on a mannequin head, attaches the mannequin head to the guy's body, and magically, when they take the hood off of his head, now he's wearing clown makeup. It's magic, folks. That's magic. Then he stabs a lady in the arm and does a joke about violence on television. And I'm just like, at this point,
her arm is resting on a TV set and he stabs it.
Ryan, okay, I'm going to backtrack just a minute ago to when we were talking about the, was it the Evil That Men Do?
No.
Where they chop off the hands and you liked it and I didn't like it. That was,
From Here to Eternity.
From Here to Eternity. Okay, so I wish that we could just remove Simon Drake from the Maiden concert completely, but we can't, because he's interacting with them on certain songs. So any fan edit is going to be flawed. He's interacting with the band on at least like 3 songs. So it can't be done properly, Ryan. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean, this segment is agonizingly long. I didn't time it, but it's got to be at least 10 minutes altogether. And then
this is like the last major Drake break. They could have split this in 2 and put it a bit later. So you're not going. It's like a 5-minute plus slog.
Yeah, because now we're just going straight songs from pretty much here on in. 2 minutes to midnight. Here's what I like about this. Harrison, do you like this too? 1, 2, 3, 4. When he does that, I love that. No,
I don't particularly care for it. I don't think it's particularly goofy, but I don't think it's particularly good.
Really?
This is going to be weird, but I like Blazer's intros to 2 minutes to midnight.
Well, that's fine, but I don't know. Like, it's one of the few moments you see Bruce being lighthearted. 1, 2, 3, 4. I love it. It's like we're seeing that Bruce. You remember how I've said to you before we were I said to him before, but you haven't seen these episodes yet, where I said, Bruce's approach live sometimes a little on the goofy side. There's very little of that goofy stuff on this concert, very little, and this is one of only a few moments where he's goofy. The thing where he's talking about your hands, that was a bit goofy too. But I missed that after Bruce left the band. I missed his humor on stage. And this is just one moment where it's like, there's the Bruce that I remember. There's the Bruce that I love. There's the Bruce that makes me just like go, man, I just like this guy. And I don't know. It's nice to see that moment of lightness, because throughout this song, I noticed that there, again, wasn't much interaction between Bruce and the rest of the band. They seemed separate. And so it's an odd vibe with this concert. It's definitely an odd vibe. As good as a lot of these tracks are, it's an odd vibe.
Yeah. And I have to sort of like support that point as well. It is a very good show vocally and sort of like from the music. Like the chorus of 2 Minutes to Midnight is a little underpowered, as all the live versions tend to be, but it's a really, really good version regardless of 2 Minutes to Midnight. And I've said throughout the series that I'm sick of the song, but I loved hearing this version. I love Yannick's hand gestures during his solo like this. They look really good. I love that.
That's what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
I love his show.
I noticed them during 2 Minutes to Midnight. Like during his like woo 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 part where he sort of like draws it out and he's like,
you mean
that.
that slow part towards
yeah,
which we talked about in our amazing Power Slave episode with Bicycle Legs. All right, so moving on, there's a change of pace, which I think is a mistake, personally speaking. But we go into Afraid to Shoot Strangers. There's a lot of smoke on stage. I'm really glad Simon Drake didn't turn this song into a joke, but I think it's slow and it's dark, and I think it just kind of messes with the pacing of the show. However, getting back to Yannick, some people would hate this, but he does this really exaggerating marching during the
That's tame for Yannick.
That is tame, but it's very exaggerated. Like, here, I'm gonna stand. It's very exaggerated, like like really exaggerated marching. And I don't know. Again, I love Yannick's showmanship. It's I don't know where he gets that energy. But
well, it's not just Yannick doing stuff on stage. Like during the Donington DVD, this is going back. There's this one point during one of the songs where both Dave and Yannick are like on their knees playing guitar, like crawling around the stage. Like, Davey's not just a stone statue up there playing guitar. People who criticize Yannick, at least during the 90s, should know that Davey was, why am I out of focus?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It adds to the mystery, Harrison.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you agree with me that the pacing is off when we get to
I don't really care about the pace. The thing, I think Afraid to Shoot Strangers is an awesome forgotten epic that should have been played more in their career throughout the 90s. I was really digging and getting into the performance here, especially by the end. And I'm traditionally not happy. I traditionally don't really care for the Bruce versions of this, but musically it's really solid. Thankfully, this is the last lackluster Bruce version of this song we have to listen to before we get to Blazers. During the intro, Nico throws a drumstick into the audience, and you can see this one guy catches it on the full. It's cool to watch, the keyboards in this song as well particularly add a lot of depth to this thin production, especially compared to I say thin compared to a lot of other Maiden releases. There is one of these camera missteps, however. During Yannick's solo, the camera is like facing the back of him, so you can't actually see what his hands are doing at all.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, but you still get a sense of the marching when he's from that angle. I just want to share a quick story with the audience. When I got this VHS, I didn't get it until 95, but I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, Aaron Liebold, who was actually on the show a couple of months ago when we did the Adventures in Epilepsy rerun. But Aaron Liebold's a few years younger than me, and he was into Nirvana, he was into Soundgarden, he was into Nine Inch Nails, and I thought that he would really dig this video because he was into horror. And so we watched the entire Raising Hell thing, and I remember during one of these songs, he was referring to their style of melodic guitar harmonies, which Afraid to Shoot Strangers is full of it, right? But he says to me, are all of their songs like this? And I thought to myself, that's funny, because he's not used to hearing these kind of melodies. He's used to, he's like waiting for a riff to come along that sounds like that, but there's nothing like that in Iron Maiden. So I just thought that was an interesting thing that I needed to share, an anecdote about Raising Hell. Afraid to Shoot Strangers, we go into Heaven Can Wait. Now, Bruce says, we're going to do a couple extra ones for you tonight.
Yes,
all right?
This is weird. According to Setlist FM, Heaven Can Wait is the main set closer, and everything afterwards was an encore. But it would be weird if Bruce would say, we're going to do a few extra ones, and then they play the main set closer. This is what I was getting at. So like maybe they spliced footage in, because he's got his jacket on when he says we're going to do a few extra ones, but the moment it cuts to the song, his jacket's off. So there's some sort of weird splicing that didn't.
There's definitely 100%. Some continuity stuff that's going on here that is confusing, but I think you're right on the money. But here's something weird. During the a bunch of kids come out on the stage with adults, but there's a bunch of kids.
Yeah, the kids all come from the left of the stage, and there's adults coming from.
So who is this show for? These kids are like 10. One thing I did like though is that there's a soccer ball, and Bruce tosses the soccer ball to Steve, who heads it into the audience, and it's one of the only times you see Bruce and Steve do any kind of interaction on this show. But I like that. I mean, Steve, how can you not like Steve? He is the guy in Iron Maiden that is, he's the guy who's leading it, and he's putting in 110%, no matter what the atmosphere is. He's the cheerleader, he's the leader and cheerleader. Anyway, Heaven Can Wait, Harrison.
Right. So the sooty puppet makes a return, this time on Bruce's hand during part of the song. Bruce is affecting this really odd warble during the bridge. It sounds weird. Now, as well as the kids coming on stage and some adults, one of the people on stage, sort of right next to Steve, is Michael Kenny, who is Steve's bass tech and the offstage keyboarder during the live show. And particularly, as you can see, most people, when the whoa section is over, they all run off to the left. You can see Michael Kenny running off to the right, where presumably his keyboard is somewhere off the stage there.
Okay, so on to Sanctuary. I don't have much to say here except for Yannick's solo is bonkers. I love this.
Funny, my notes literally have the lines, don't have much to say, actually. But
it's great. It's great.
We are on the same wavelength here for once. But one thing I noticed in the audience is these people holding a flag up, and it's got a picture of a gallows on it. I said the gallows would return. Here's the picture, and it says, the flag says, Bruce, if you leave, Sooty gets it. And the picture of the gallows.
Mega fans, obviously. I'm not like the sweater guy that got turned into a clown. Run to the Hills. So you get the sense this is where the band intros would be, but we don't get the band intros here. We get them later on. But we do get a thank you from Bruce, and this is where Harrison mentioned, this is where we get the acknowledgement that Bruce is leaving the band, and he says, I hope you'll like all the stuff that I'm going to do, and I hope you'll like all the stuff that these guys are going to do, because they're carrying on. And I was, it's kind of Henry's got to go. Thank you, Henry, for watching, and thank you for contributing that information to the episode tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Take care, buddy. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Henry is an awesome, loyal viewer. Really appreciate him so much. So Bruce acknowledges it, and I was wondering, what the conversations backstage or before the show were like. We do have to acknowledge that Bruce is leaving at the end of the show. What are we going to do? Are we going to say good luck to Iron Maiden? We're carrying on. Did Iron Maiden even really know that they were carrying on at that point? Because I know there were uncertainties between this point and Blaze Bayley. I don't know the timeline, but Bruce clearly says these guys are carrying on. So that's the first acknowledgement of it, and that happens during Run to the Hills, which is a fine version. Now, as Harrison said, you get a little bit of a lead vocal. Well, not a lead vocal, but you get a clear vocal from Yannick.
Yes, this is another one of the songs that he's doing backing vocals on. And there's this one line where Bruce says, you sing it, and he holds the and he doesn't sing. And then the mix is really odd here because Yannick's voice is super pumped up in the mix. You can very clear him saying, run to the hills in this British accent.
And he's so clean. Yeah. Like his voice is so clean. And the way that he sings.
It's not the most melodic singing voice, but he doesn't sound bad by it. He's just singing in a British accent, basically.
But what I like is that he's singing clearly the support vocal line. Like there's no elaboration on it. He's singing the notes. He's He's not doing any kind of flourishes. He's just singing, "Run to the hills," very straight, like a choir boy, kind of straight, you know?
Yeah. It was just so weird because it was the only time on backing vocals that they pumped him way up in the mix so that you can hear him. It sounds like a mixing error because it's the only time it happened, but it's still really cool to hear him.
It is cool. And
he would only very rarely be on backing vocals during songs, and once Adrian came back, I think he stopped doing it entirely.
he doesn't, he needs to run around more is what happens. But I think a lot of what we're talking about tonight, these little idiosyncrasies, these are the reasons why I love the audio of Raising Hell. I've decided I'm not going to go and grab the cassette. Maybe we can show that off on a bonus episode if I still have it. I just don't want to dig for a cassette on a live show. So we won't do that, but we will move on to the final song. And giving everything away, Bruce says, "Everyone in TV land, it's time to die." And some dude actually makes it up on stage to sing actually the line "Iron Maiden," which is again something weird. You wouldn't expect that at all at a Maiden
this
concert.
time Bruce doesn't fireman carry him off. He just
Right.
the security kind of pulls him down.
It's weird. Like it's not something you expect to see on a controlled studio environment. But is there anything you want to say here before we get to?
Yeah, so Bruce had his jacket back on. Continuity here. I love this version of. It's one of my favorite Bruce versions of Iron Maiden because Bruce is adding this like very no prayer exaggerated rasp to a lot of lines, and I think it really like sort of brings. It converts what is usually just Bruce more or less just putting out words so that he can get to the chorus and that I want you, and it actually makes it into like it sounds like he's actually invested in the vocals for once. I'm glad to see the big Tree Eddie, as I mentioned earlier, Walk On Eddie. I'm glad they retained him. Tree Eddie up the back there, he's retained as well. They didn't decide to cut out Tree Eddie in light of what happens later in the track, and I really like that. Now, for the last Drake bit that Mike's going to discuss in detail, I'm just going to talk about the music. So this music that was identified as Battle by Steve Everett. But see, I didn't just take this for granted. I actually listened to every like bit, multiple songs like back and forth, being like, all right, yeah, this is definitely this. I couldn't confirm that this was Battle by Steve Everett. It sounded similar, but I couldn't just nail it down. But anyway, Mike, after Iron Maiden ends and the band are there on stage, you know, doing their goodbyes. What happened?
One moment first.
Yeah.
You said, you know, when Bruce says, "And you," this is one of the worst editing moments of the entire video. It's worse than cutting away to Yannick during Davy's solo. Bruce, "And you," points right at the camera, "and you," and the fucking camera, pardon my French, cuts away. Right as he's pointing at it, cuts away. Incompetent. That was like, I was shocked. I'm like, way to blow the moment. Completely blow the moment. Anyway, so after the awful editing moment, which by the way, I put in capital letters in my notes, Bruce says, "From myself, Bruce Dickinson," which is the first time I think he's ever been named himself on stage.
I haven't listened to every performance.
More than likely,
all the years and years and years.
They're consistent.
Yeah.
From myself.
Yeah, because when he introduces the band, normally he doesn't introduce himself. He starts with, David Murray on the 6-string fiddle.
Oh,
and,
flat
Ian on the tubs.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He doesn't usually introduce himself.
So this is what he says. "From myself, Bruce Dickinson, Eddie, and the boys, it has been a very good 10 years. Now, throughout the show, he also says 11 years. So we're just rounding here. And then he says,
yeah, he joined in 80 at the very end of 81, and it's end of 93 now, but it's more or less 10 years.
Yeah, we're just going to be round. It just sounds good. But we will all see you again soon. I hope. And then we go into the final Drake break. This is the best one. I think we both agree there.
Well, I prefer From Here to Eternity. I like From Here to Eternity as well. But
okay, so don't just ignore Harrison when he's talking about that one particular sketch, and just trust me on that one. I would have played it, except it has From Here to Eternity in the music, and I would have had to mute it, which ruins the entire point of playing the guitar solo. Otherwise, I would have loved to have played it. Anyway, this is it. This is the final Drake break, and in my opinion, the best.
We'll see all of you
Clean the vomit from the TV. Thank you. Nico McBrain, Yannick Gers, Davey Murray, Steve Harris. Thank you.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. The first thing that I want to point out is that maybe this is meta humor, but the band make no effort to save Bruce.
Nico just sort of chases them off.
Right, he's got his drumsticks in his hand. He's like, chases them off the stage, and then once they're off the Maiden side of the stage, Nico just fucks off. So maybe that's meta humor that the band make no effort whatsoever to save Bruce from Simon Drake. So much to unpack here, but I'll let Harrison start.
Yeah, I like that Drake gets what's coming to him as well.
Yeah.
He gets got he gets got at the end as well. I like that Eddie's the one to do it as well.
His own henchman turn on him. His own henchman.
I mean, he did kill one of them by boring through her head. So yeah, they probably, there's probably some job security concerns there. Probably a few health and safety issues as well. They'd want to take up with him. That basically what happens immediately after that is the camera basically just sits on that and the credits roll. And it's a really somber credits. There's
like that music that you heard. Yeah, that music that you heard just carries on. It's like this.
It's a really sad credit to watch. Actually,
this is. Well, we'll get to the final ratings, but I think overall this is a miss. This concert, this release. But a little bit more about what we just saw. It's also a little bit of a throwback to the original Made in Japan cover, which featured Eddie with the decapitated Paul Di'Anno head. Well, this time, instead of being an unreleased thing, this time we finally got it. The decapitation of the lead singer and impaling him on the pike on top of Simon Drake. Now, I thought that magic trick was actually really good. I thought that one was really good when he's spinning and it impales him.
Particularly, how they put him on that. Yeah.
Right. I like that Juliet Cowan is the one that hit him over the head. I think it was the tire iron that he was using earlier.
Yeah, she was using the very same crowbar that he used to pry open the Marshall stack earlier.
And that he hit the guy on the head with in the Marshall stack. So yeah, I wonder if Juliet Cowan puts this show on her resume when she's anyway. I'm glad that she's moved on to better things.
Well, this is one of the few times that Iron Maiden have other bands as part of their release. I don't know if it's credited, but they've got Marty Friedman on here.
I don't think it was credited, or I remember being curious about it when I had the VHS. So 17 tracks all together. We've seen the cover art before by Derek Riggs.
It's a reuse of Bass Eddie, but it is also a cool art to reuse. It's not like they're reusing a real dead one or anything. As mentioned before, spine art sucks.
There's the BMG logo for those who are curious. Mine is NTSC. This compilation is 2000 BMG. Compilation, interestingly.
Maybe there's some sort of like tax benefit of labeling it as a compilation or something. I don't know.
Or maybe it is a compilation of two nights.
Of Drake and Maiden, and
a lot of that Drake stuff could have been done the prior night during rehearsals. Who knows? We're speculating a lot. I just do want to point out the only nice thing about the spine, which is at least you get the Eddie on the spine. But as Harrison said, it looks like crap when you have it lined up next to your Maiden collection. I personally, I think this is a near miss, but it's still a miss. I think, as we were talking about with Ryan earlier, I think a fan edit wouldn't even save it because you still get the Simon Drake interaction with the band on From Here to Eternity and one of the other songs. I can't remember which one. I think it was Bring Your Daughter. I like I said, the perfect way to experience this, in my opinion, is to record it to an audio format, cut out all the Drake stuff, and just have the songs, which in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that in the modern digital way and create an MP3 version of this album that I can listen to, because, as we have said consistently through the show, this is a pretty darn good Maiden concert. I think audio-wise, I prefer it to any of the 3 live albums that we reviewed last week. I would give this a solid 4 out of 5 audio-wise. As far as video-wise goes, I don't know, maybe 2.5 out of 5. I'm not happy with some of the editing choices. I don't like the Simon Drake stuff. I never did. A miss, a near miss, but a miss. Harrison.
Right. So it's a far better watch than Donington. You couldn't even tell it was recorded in the 90s. None of that slow-mo, none of that black and white. Even despite Drake's bits, I still think it's a better watch than Donington because you can actually see what the band are doing on stage most of the time when the camera's not on the back of Yannick's guitar. Smaller track list than Donington, but they dropped songs like Tail Gunner and Wasting Love, which I don't really care for, also Running Free. I, like you, I think I like this better than any of the other live releases at the time. I'd rate it about the same as what I rated live at Donington because, smaller track list. Donington had a bigger track list, but this is a far better watch. My rating is skewed more factoring in Iron Maiden than in Drake because I can just skip Drake if I want to. I'd give it a 4.25, which was out of 5 stars, the same that I gave live at Donington because it's a really good band performance here.
I just realized for consistency, I've been doing this out of 10, so I'll say 8 out of 10. You've been doing out of 5. I've been doing it at 10, but I want to remain consistent through the series. That's it. Bruce is out. Bruce Dickinson is out of the band. Now, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to run the next chapter next week. Next week is actually my birthday, so we may do a rerun of my birthday episode from last year as well because it was a really good birthday episode. But I think we're going to run. I think we're going to do it, Harrison. I think next week we're going to dive on in. We're going to talk about this baby right here. There it is. The X Factor. I think we're going to do it. And I will tell you folks, next Friday, July 18th, is the longest episode that we've ever done. I think it's about an hour and 40 minutes. Our guest is Jake, not from State Farm, who you've heard us talk about before and has been in the comments before. I think next week is one of my favorite episodes that we've ever recorded. But Not all fans are accepting of Blaze Bayley. So we'll just have to see what happens next in 50 years of
Yes,
Iron Maiden.
will our perfect positive comments record be besmirched at this point?
It could. We don't know yet. Obviously, we have Ryan happy to bring on the Blaze era, and we are going to bring on the Blaze era. So let me just give you a quick rundown of what we have planned for the next few shows. We're going to throw in some breaks because Mike has house renovations coming end of July, early August. So I'm going to need to step back for a week or two. No. Okay. Context. Bruce is out of the band on this DVD. This is his final concert that we're covering tonight. Bruce is out of the band.
Final concert.
Blaze Bayley is in the band in terms of our story that we are telling here this year on 50 Years of Iron Maiden. So next week we are going to do the X Factor. Yes, we are going to tackle it. We have a mega episode for the X Factor.
The X Factor exists. Get over it.
It exists, but we have a mega episode lined up for the X Factor. Really proud of this one. We even have some Blaze Bayley interviews to run with that episode. Then we're going to do Best of the Beast, the 2 CD compilation, or 4 LP compilation. Yes, without context, that would have been quite shocking, wouldn't it? We're going to do Virtual 11. We're going to do Ed Hunter. We're going to do Brave New World.
We're going to give Ed Hunter the full treatment, the game, the compilation, and the tour.
We have some great stuff lined up for you folks. But like I said, there's going to be some breaks because I do have house renovations to deal with in a few weeks. And we are also planning on going live. I can't remember the date, but I think it's the last Friday of July. 25th of July. We're just waiting for confirmation from one person, but we're planning on doing just a casual what's new in our collections show with 3 Australians versus 1 Canadian. We're going to have, if everything works out, we're going to have Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation. We're going to have Ash Geisler from Ash's Concerts. And of course, my fellow co-host Harrison Kopp. And that's a rough outline for what we have planned, but definitely tune in next Friday, July 18th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will be talking about the X Factor with Blaze Bayley in our longest episode to date. And it's for a good reason, because there are 14 original songs to discuss and a whole whack of other stuff too. All right, I've talked enough. Harrison, anything you want to say as we say goodbye to Bruce?
Not really. Just to say that as you all know, I am a Blaze Bayley mega fan, both of his solo career and time with Iron Maiden. You will get plenty of praise from me, even if I may seem a bit restrained and reserved in comparison to our guest, Mr. Jake Knott from State Farm.
Expect a lot of deep cut analysis. Expect Blaze Bayley interview clips. Expect the works. That's about it, folks. We'll see you next week on Grab a Stack of Rock. As you know,
the works is Queen, you see, but
sorry,
no, the works is Queen, you see.
He's making
lame joke. I know.
He's making a joke. As you know, we always like to go out on a song. What song in the catalog do you think the Maiden fans would dig? Since we've probably already lost monetization by playing the Marty Friedman clips, it doesn't really matter. Do you think they would
have Bones and Clothes? I know that one is monetized.
That
now,
one is. I don't think I have that one anymore.
If we have Marty Friedman taking our money, we might as well give some to Plasticine.
I was going to say, there's a band that also lost their lead singer around the same time as Bruce Dickinson. A band called Anthrax. And they did a track on their final album with Joey Belladonna called "Got the Time." So I'm thinking maybe we should play.
Yeah,
we're gonna play a track by a local band. This was recorded right around this era, 1993, 94. This was recorded for local television. This is a band called Clockwork Orange, and this is their cover of "Got the Time." So we'll see you next week on 50 Years of Iron Maiden. Bye, everybody.
Called "Got the Time." Wake up, got another day to get through now, got another man to see. Little ringing on the telephone, way off the ringing in the paper. Thank God, gotta get a letter just right. Thank God, gotta get this letter just right. Little ringing on the telephone, way over the ringing of the head now. No such thing as tomorrow. Only 1, 2, 3, go time! Time ticking, ticking in my head. Time ticking, ticking in my head. Time ticking, ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. Ticking in my head. If I tell you what I'm doing today, will you shut and get out of my way? Someone doesn't what the time is. I don't know. They know I gotta go now. No time, trying to get my watch repaired. No time, never got a thing to wear. Little ringing on the telephone, way over the ringing on my head now. No such thing as tomorrow.